All right, this weekend I had a little bit of success fishing a jerkbait out on Lake Mead. I've spent a fair amount of time fishing jerkbaits in the past, but just in recent reading and research, I've learned a few more things about color and how to fish it and how to give it the best presentation possible. So I've got two baits here. One's a Bass Pro Shop XPS. This bait runs about 5 foot deep. It's suspending. I added the dress treble to it. You can get these at Bass Pro. You can get a 2-pack for about $4. This is a Rapala. I also added the dress treble, and I used a Sharpie to add the black dot to make it look a little bit more like the threadfin shad that are present in Lake Mead. And then this bait, like I said, or maybe I didn't say that, but this bait runs 5 to 15 foot deep. You can notice the bill on the front of it, it's a lot bigger, so it gets it down a lot deeper. So the things that I've learned via research, just Googling cold water bass techniques, this being one of them, late fall, winter, great bait to throw for that. I learned that color is very important, and my experience would match up with what that says. I've been out on a Mojave twice, real clear water lake. Both times I've been out there, the conditions were sunny, clear, wind, just light breezes, 2 to 4 mile an hour for the most part. And I fished this bait. I threw it around quite a bit. This bait's a little darker, gives off a little more flash, and I don't think it matches the hatch of Mojave or the threadfin shad that are present as well as this bait would. So with that said, the color is important. If you're fishing a body of water, a river, lake, whatever, where the water is very clear, you have lots of light, the sun's up, there's not a lot of cloud cover, visibility is good, you're going to want something as natural as possible. This bait's transparent with a little bit of, almost looks like a rolled up ribbon on the inside of it to give it just a little bit of flash. But this bait works well for clear water situations because it doesn't stick out so much that the bass gets to look at it and go, what is that? They kind of see it, they see the outline, the silhouette of it, and they immediately think bait, fish, boom, reaction strike. This fish, or this bait, in a clear water situation with lots of light and visibility is going to stick out and flash a whole lot more, so it gives the bass, I think, a time to think about it, and you're not going to get the reaction strike that you'd get with a Rapala of this color. This bait's probably going to work better in water conditions where the water's not as clear, light's not as it's not as light. Maybe it's a cloudy and overcast day. Maybe the water's a little more choppy. Visibility is not going to be as good. This bait might be a better choice. The biggest differences between these baits, besides color, is going to be the depth that they run, 5 to 15 foot for the Rapala here, and 0 to 6 foot or 5 foot for the XPS, Bass Pro Jerkbait. They're both suspending, so once you get them down there, they're going to stay wherever you put them in the water column. Obviously, if your maximum depth is around 10 foot, this bait's going to be all right because you're going to get it down there close enough to the fish where even if there's a fish closer to the bottom in 10 foot, they're still going to be able to see it or hear it, and you can get that strike. But that's really about all you can fish with this bait. You can't really throw it in an area where the water is a whole lot deeper than that. At least in my opinion, I don't think it would be as effective as a bait like this where you can get down there to them. However, this bait, you're not just going to fish in situations where the water's, say, 15 to 20 foot. You can throw this bait in 5 foot of water just fine. Just keep in mind, when you cast it out, if you want to get it down to where maybe fish are at 15 foot, in the water column, obviously you're going to throw it out and you're going to reel it down and get it down where you want it, let it sit, and then get those violent jerks to get it to dart back and forth. But if you're fishing it shallower, let's say you're in an area where there's 5 foot of water, and this is the jerk bait that you have, heavier line A is going to keep it from going down as far, and B, depending on which way you have your rod pointed. If you're up on a bass boat, up on the deck, and you're fishing and you got your rod tip pointed down, that's gonna cause the jerk bait to have that downward motion. Whereas if you're sitting up or you're standing up on the deck of your bass boat and you give it an upward jerk, or you're jerking your rod horizontal with the or parallel with the deck of the boat, your bait's not going to want to dive as much. So there's ways to keep this bait up from going down to say 15 or whatever the depth is that the bait can go. So this bait, in my mind, is a way more versatile bait. Disregard the color, pretend like the color wasn't an issue. You had the right color, but a bait that allows you to get it deeper is going to be a little more versatile than a bait that, say, only goes 0 to 5 foot. You can throw this in different depths, whereas this, you know, you're good for 10 foot of water maybe, if that. This you can throw in lots of different depths. So obviously depth is a factor. You need to think about where your fish are going to be. Color is probably the most important thing in regards to throwing a jerkbait in the fall or the winter. Low light conditions where you want the bait to be noticed because fish aren't going to see it as well. You need something maybe a little darker, a little more flashy, or maybe even bright. If you're fishing muddy water, a chartreuse might be helpful. Something that's going to get the fish to look at it. Real clear, high visibility. You want something that's not going to stand out quite as much, but will still produce that reaction strike. And I think this bait will do a good enough job for that. And this bait might even work in some lower light conditions because it's got just enough flash and enough sound where I think you would still get some strikes. So if I had to say which one of these would I have in my boat or my kayak all the time, I would definitely say the one that runs deeper, that just gives you more choices when you're on the water. Hope that helps.